Nicolas Cage has spent a lifetime defying expectations. He is Hollywood's wild card, a performer whose career has veered from Oscar-winning brilliance to direct-to-video madness, all while maintaining an intensity few actors can match. He is known for his unpredictable choices, offbeat delivery, and willingness to dive headfirst into roles that others wouldn't touch. But his unique approach to the industry has also led to some unforgettable clashes. From on-set disputes to legal battles, Cage has found himself at odds with co-stars, directors, and even rock stars. Some conflicts stemmed from creative differences, others from personal grievances, and a few remain clouded in mystery. The people who have crossed him range from legendary actors to notorious musicians, and while some disputes faded with time, others left scars that never fully healed. He doesn't always respond to criticism, but when he does, it's with the same unfiltered energy that defines his work. Sean Penn, a man known for his no-nonsense attitude, didn't hold back when discussing Cage's acting. The two had worked together in Racing with the Moon, an early 80s coming-of-age drama.
What the hell's the matter with you? You, Nicky, you know what's the matter with me?
It was one of Cage's first major roles, and while Penn had already begun to make a name for himself as an intense, method-driven actor, Cage was still developing his signature style. At the time, their differences weren't obvious, but years later, Penn made it clear that he had no respect for Cage's approach. Nick Cage is no longer an actor. He could be again, but now he's more like a performer. It wasn't a casual remark. Penn was drawing a line between what he saw as serious acting and what he considered to be empty theatrics. It was a public dismissal of a man who had, by that point, already won an Academy Award for leaving Las Vegas. Cage never fired back, but it's telling that their careers never intersected again. Penn continued down the road of prestige cinema, directing and starring in films designed to win awards.
For including me in this group of super talents and for helping me blur the line between art and comedy.
Cage, on the other hand, leaned into the surreal, taking on roles that made critics scratch their heads, but cemented his status as an unpredictable force. That unpredictability isn't just confined to his film choices. In 2016, he found himself in the middle of an altercation with Vince Neil, the hard-living frontman of Motley Crue. The two were in Las Vegas, enjoying a night out at the Aria Hotel, when the situation took an ugly turn. Neil, who has a long history of legal troubles, allegedly assaulted a woman, grabbing her by the hair and pulling her to the ground. Cage, seeing what was happening, stepped in. Footage from the night shows Cage and Neil outside the hotel, with Cage visibly agitated. He grabs Neil and pulls him into what looks like a headlock, shouting, "Stop this shit now!" The video went viral, and speculation ran wild. Was Cage attacking Neil? Was he trying to restrain him? Was this a drunken scuffle between two celebrities, or a moment of genuine intervention? Neil was later cited for battery, while Cage walked away unscathed. Neither of them publicly addressed the fight in any meaningful way, but it was clear that whatever friendship they had was over. Neil, notorious for his past altercations, including a fatal drink-driving accident in the 80s, didn't seem particularly remorseful. Cage, who has had his own fair share of wild moments, seemed to be playing the role of peacemaker that night, though the incident left behind an air of unfinished business. Not all of Cage's feuds played out in the street. Some were settled in courtrooms. Kathleen Turner learned this the hard way when she published Send Yourself Roses, a memoir filled with juicy Hollywood gossip. In it, she claimed that Cage had been a nightmare to work with on Peggy Sue Got Married. That in itself wouldn't have been surprising. Cage was known for making bizarre choices on set, including using a strange voice for his character.
Right now I'm touring a show that I created called Finding My Voice,
that director Francis Ford Coppola begged him to drop. But Turner didn't stop at criticizing his performance. She wrote that Cage had been arrested twice for drink driving and, most bizarrely, had stolen a chihuahua. The accusation was too much. Cage sued for defamation, taking the case to London's High Court. Turner was forced to admit that her claims were false, issuing a public apology and covering Cage's legal costs. As part of the settlement, she also made a donation to charity. It was a rare instance of Cage fighting back against negative press, and he won decisively. The legal victory didn't erase the tension between them, though. The two never worked together again, and Turner never mentioned him in such colourful terms after that. Then there's the saga of The Island of Dr. Moreau, a film so doomed that it's almost impossible to imagine how it ever got made. Richard Stanley, the original director, had envisioned Cage as the star. It could have been a perfect fit. The story, based on H.G. Wells's novel, was packed with the kind of madness Cage thrives on. But the production was a disaster before it even began. Marlon Brando was cast as the titular doctor, and his erratic behaviour derailed everything. Val Kilmer, another leading man with a reputation for being difficult, made matters worse. Before the cameras even started rolling, the studio pulled the plug on Stanley, firing him from his own project. That was all Cage needed to see. Rather than step into what was clearly a spiralling disaster, he walked away. The role went to David Thewlis instead, and the film became one of the most infamous failures in Hollywood history. Stanley later reflected on the situation, suggesting that had Cage stayed, things might have gone differently. But given what unfolded, Brando refusing to learn his lines, Kilmer refusing to take direction, and the set descending into chaos, it's unlikely that anyone could have salvaged it. Cage has never been one to dwell on past conflicts. He keeps moving forward, taking on new projects with the same reckless enthusiasm that has defined his career. He doesn't respond to criticism in interviews, doesn't engage in social media spats, and rarely holds grudges. That said, the people he's clashed with have a tendency to disappear from his orbit entirely. Sean Penn never worked with him again. Vince Neil hasn't been spotted anywhere near him since their Vegas altercation. Kathleen Turner learned the hard way that making things up about him comes with consequences. His unpredictability is what makes him one of the most fascinating figures in the industry. He can go from fighting a lawsuit one moment to giving an impassioned speech about German expressionist cinema the next. He has no interest in playing by Hollywood's rules, and that's what makes his career so impossible to pin down.
Good to see you, Nick. Oh, there it is.
One minute he's starring in a critically acclaimed thriller, the next he's making a straight-to-streaming action film with a title so ridiculous it feels like a joke. Some actors build careers on consistency. Cage has done the opposite. He is a man who will take a role purely because he finds it interesting, even if the film itself is a disaster. He will walk away from a project if he senses chaos, but he will also immerse himself in the bizarre if he believes in it enough. His feuds, however rare, are just another part of the mythology that surrounds him. Whether stepping into a legal battle or grabbing a rock star by the throat, he remains as compelling off-screen as he is on it.